Before you tell me you already know this story, I need you to hear something. The film you watched, the posters you've seen, the speeches you've quoted, almost all of it is wrong. There were not 300 men at Thermopylae. There was no Persian god king 9 feet tall. The Spartans did not fight half-naked. Leonidas did not deliver that speech. And the real reason Thermopylae matters has nothing to do with what Hollywood put on screen. The real story is more brutal, more complicated, and infinitely more fascinating than the movie. So if you think you know what happened in that mountain pass in 480 BC, stay here. Because in the next 20 minutes, everything you believe about Thermopylae is going to change. In 2007, a film called 300 made $456 million at the global box office. It won awards. It launched a fitness trend. It made Spartans cool again. It also buried the actual history under 2 hours of CGI abs and screaming. And that matters, because when a story this important gets distorted, we lose something real. We lose the actual lessons of what happened. We lose the genuine horror and genuine heroism of 480 BC. Here is what we know, from Herodotus, the Greek historian who interviewed survivors and wrote within living memory of the battle, and from modern archaeology and scholarship. In 480 BC, Xerxes I, king of kings, ruler of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, launched the largest military campaign the ancient world had ever seen. He was not avenging a personal humiliation. He was executing a decades-long imperial strategy. Persia had already absorbed Lydia, Egypt, Babylon, and swaths of Central Asia. Greece was the next logical target. His force crossed the Hellespont on a bridge of boats. Ancient sources, Herodotus included, claimed over 2 million soldiers. Modern historians, working from logistics and supply line data, estimate between 100,000 and 300,000 combat troops. Even at the conservative end, it was an overwhelming force. Against it, a fractured Greek alliance could field perhaps 30,000 men, total, if every city-state cooperated. They rarely cooperated. The strategic plan was simple: slow Xerxes at a bottleneck, buy the Greek navy time to assemble, win at sea, force a Persian withdrawal. The bottleneck was a narrow coastal pass in central Greece, a pass called Thermopylae. And now, let's talk about who actually went there to hold it, because the movie got this badly wrong. Myth: it was 300 Spartans alone. Truth: it was 7,000 plus Greeks from multiple city-states. The 300 were the core, but they were far from alone. Let's start with the number the movie buried, 7,000. That is the approximate size of the Greek force that assembled at Thermopylae. Not 300, 7,000 men from across the Greek world. There were 700 Thespians, citizens of the small city of Thespiae. There were 400 Thebans. There were contingents from Corinth, Arcadia, Mantinea, Phlius, and Mycenae. There were 1,000 Phocians guarding the mountain trail above the pass. And yes, at the center, the professionals, the linchpin of the entire defense, 300 Spartans. So why do we only remember 300? 2 reasons. First, because on the final day, when the betrayal came, most of the Greek allies were dismissed by Leonidas. The force that made the last stand was significantly smaller. Second, because the Spartans were so disproportionately lethal, so strategically crucial, that their 300 cast a shadow over everyone else. But the 700 Thespians deserved better than footnotes. When Leonidas dismissed the allies, the Thespians refused to leave. Every single one of them chose to stay and die alongside the Spartans, not because they were ordered to, but because Thespiae was directly in the Persian army's path. They knew what retreat meant. Their city would burn, so they stayed. And they died, all 700 of them. Their names were never carved into a monument. The movie didn't cast them. History barely mentions them. This is already a different story than the one we've been told. Now let's talk about the Spartans themselves, because the movie got them wrong too. The truth is simultaneously more impressive and more disturbing. Sparta was a society built on a foundation of slavery. The Helots, enslaved Greek-speaking people conquered by Sparta, outnumbered Spartans roughly 7-1. The entire Spartan military system existed, in large part, to keep those enslaved people from revolting. The agoge, the brutal training program that created Spartan warriors, was real. Boys were taken from their families at age 7. They slept on rough reeds. They went hungry deliberately. They were subjected to ritual beatings not as punishment, but as training to endure pain without crying out. At age 12, they were sent out alone with only a cloak and a knife. They were expected to steal food. If they were caught, they were punished, not for stealing, but for being caught. At age 18, some sources describe the crypteia, a terrifying rite of passage in which young Spartans were sent into Helot communities at night, armed, with implicit permission to kill. Historians debate the full extent of this practice, but the point is clear. Sparta built soldiers by stripping away every comfort and instilling one absolute principle: you do not stop. By the time a Spartan stood in a phalanx at age 20, he had spent 13 years being systematically made into a weapon. Now consider, the 300 at Thermopylae were not random Spartans. They were the hippes, the royal bodyguard, the finest of the finest, each one personally selected, each one required, for this specific mission, to have already fathered a son. Leonidas was not sending men who might die. He was sending men who knew they would die, and whose bloodlines were secured. That is not heroism from a movie script. That is something far colder and far more extraordinary. We've established who really fought, but the movie's biggest lie isn't about numbers, it's about Xerxes himself. Coming up, who Xerxes actually was, and why the god-king image was Persian propaganda that even Persians didn't fully believe. The film gave us Xerxes as a pierced, gold-covered deity, literally a god, 9 feet tall, surrounded by grotesque attendants. The real Xerxes was more interesting and more frightening than that. He was approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall by ancient standards. He was described by Greek sources as physically striking, with a commanding presence. He dressed in magnificent robes and wore the Persian royal crown called the Kadaris. He was not a monster. He was a sophisticated, educated monarch who had governed the world's largest empire for 10 years before launching the Greek campaign. The title King of Kings was not arrogance. It was technically accurate. Xerxes ruled over dozens of kings, client monarchs across Persia, Egypt, Babylon, and beyond. He administered a vast bureaucracy. He corresponded in multiple languages. He built Persepolis, one of the most remarkable architectural achievements of the ancient world. He was also, by the accounts of Herodotus, a man capable of tremendous rage and, on occasion, tremendous remorse. When the first bridge of boats across the Hellespont was destroyed in a storm, Xerxes reportedly ordered the sea itself whipped, 300 lashes, and had chains thrown into the water to symbolically bind it. Herodotus presents this as evidence of arrogance. Modern historians see something else: a man performing power for his army, maintaining the image of divine authority that an empire of that scale required. The god-king mythology was strategic. It kept subjects submissive. It kept allied kings in line. It made the Persian imperial project possible. At Thermopylae, Xerxes sat on a golden throne above the pass and watched his army fight. He rose from that throne 3 times, according to Herodotus, in fear for his men. That's not a god, that's a king who understood, with growing horror, that something was not working. He sent a Persian envoy to Leonidas demanding the Greeks lay down their arms. Leonidas replied, and this part is real, recorded in Greek sources, molon labe. Come and take them. 2 words, 2,500 years, still engraved on modern military memorials. But before the battle began, Xerxes apparently had trouble believing his intelligence about the Spartans. He sent a scout to observe the Greek camp. The scout reported something strange. The Spartans were exercising, doing gymnastics, combing their long hair, in full view of the Persian army. Xerxes was puzzled. He asked Demaratus, a former Spartan king in his court, now an exile advising the Persians. Demaratus told him, "These men have come to fight. It is their custom to dress their hair when they are about to risk their lives." Xerxes reportedly laughed. He would not be laughing 4 days later. Myth: Xerxes was a godlike supernatural being. Truth: he was a sophisticated, tall, human monarch, and the god-king image was deliberate political theater, not reality. The movie shows an open, dramatic clifftop battle site with stylized darkness and fire. The real Thermopylae was muddier, smaller, and more brutally effective than any film set. In 480 BC, the pass was a narrow coastal corridor between Mount Kalidromos and the Malian Gulf. At its narrowest point, the middle gate, where the Greeks chose to make their stand, it was approximately 15 meters wide. Some ancient sources say less. You could fit perhaps 15 to 20 soldiers across it, shoulder to shoulder. The name Thermopylae means the hot gates, named for sulfurous hot springs that vented from the rock along the path. The terrain stank of sulfur. The ground was uneven. The sea was close enough that Greek soldiers could hear the waves. Through this corridor, Xerxes needed to funnel his entire army to reach southern Greece. There was no viable alternative route at that time. The mountain tracks were too narrow for a supply-supported army. What Leonidas understood, with tactical clarity, was the mathematics of the pass. It didn't matter whether Xerxes had 100,000 men or 1,000,000. In that corridor, he could put 15 men across. The Greeks could put 15 men across. Every other soldier in the Persian force was a spectator, standing in a queue, waiting their turn. The Greeks also found the ruins of an old Phocian wall mid-pass. Leonidas ordered it rebuilt and reinforced. Now the Persians were charging uphill, into shields, with no room to use cavalry, no room to encircle, no room to apply their numerical advantage in any meaningful way. The hot gates wasn't just a defensive position, it was a mathematical equalizer. And the phalanx, the Spartan fighting formation, was specifically designed to maximize lethality in exactly this kind of narrow engagement. 8 ranks deep, each man's overlapping aspis shield, a heavy bronze-faced disc nearly a meter across, covered his own left side and the right side of the man next to him. The phalanx didn't fight as individuals. It breathed, rotated, and killed as a single organism. When the front rank tired, they stepped back. The second rank stepped forward. Fresh spears, fresh shields, same war. The Persians were fighting men who never ran out of energy, because they were always fighting fresh opponents. This is the geometry that held 200,000 men. Not superhuman strength. Pure tactical intelligence. Xerxes waited 4 days after arriving at Thermopylae before ordering the attack. He was certain, or hoped, that the Greeks would see the size of his force and withdraw. They did not move. On day 1, what we believe was around August 17, 480 BC, he sent the Medes forward. The Medes were capable, experienced soldiers. They were not the bottom of the Persian military hierarchy. They were a respected fighting force. They walked into the pass in formation. And they were annihilated. The Spartan phalanx met them in the narrowest section of the corridor. The Persian weapons, shorter spears, lighter shields, were immediately at a disadvantage. The Greek dory spear extended 9 feet in front of the warrior. By the time a Persian soldier was close enough to use his shorter blade, he had already been stabbed twice. The Spartans also employed a tactical deception that day. Periodically, they feigned a retreat, the front ranks breaking and pulling back, appearing to flee. The Persian soldiers surged forward, breaking their own formation in pursuit. Then the Spartans pivoted, reformed, and closed. It was a trap. It worked repeatedly. By the end of day 1, Xerxes had sent the Medes, the Scythians, and a second wave of fresh troops into the pass. All of them broke. Persian dead covered the ground of the corridor. Greek casualties were minimal. Scholars estimate the 300 alone took fewer than 10 dead on day 1. Xerxes, according to Herodotus, rose from his throne 3 times in agitation. He had not expected this. Day 2. The Immortals. The Immortals were the pinnacle of the Persian military. 10,000 elite soldiers, their name derived from the practice of immediately replacing any soldier who died or fell sick, so the unit always numbered exactly 10,000. They were Xerxes' personal guard, his finest weapon. He sent them into the pass on day 2. They failed too. The Immortals were exceptional in open field combat. In a 15-meter wide corridor, their skills and their numbers were equally irrelevant. They faced the same wall of bronze that had destroyed the Medes. Their wicker shields offered less protection than the Greek bronze aspis. Their equipment was simply not designed for this environment. The Spartans rotated their lines with mechanical precision. When a front-rank warrior's spear shattered, he drew his short sword, the xiphos, and kept fighting. When he tired, the man behind him stepped forward. By the end of day 2, the Immortals had retreated from the pass. Xerxes had now thrown his best infantry at 300 men, and had nothing to show for it except thousands of additional casualties. The mood in the Persian camp that night was, by all historical accounts, deeply troubled. And then a man came out of the dark, a local Greek, a man who knew the mountains. His name was Ephialtes, and what he was about to say would change everything. Ephialtes has just arrived at the Persian camp, but before we follow him up that mountain trail, you need to understand something Leonidas already knew, and what he chose to do about it. The decision he made in the next 12 hours is the most debated act in Greek military history. Here is something the movie entirely omits. Leonidas knew about the goat path. It wasn't a secret. Local knowledge of mountain trails in your own region is not a military intelligence coup. Leonidas knew the path existed. He stationed the Phocian contingent, 1,000 men, on the heights to guard it. He considered the threat addressed. The Phocians were guarding the path when the Immortals arrived in the dark. The sound of footsteps on dried leaves woke them. They scrambled to arms. The Immortals paused, and then simply walked past them. They were not here to fight the Phocians. The Phocians, realizing they were massively outnumbered and that the pass was already flanked, retreated to a higher hill to defend themselves. The Immortals continued down the trail toward the back of the Greek position. By dawn, Leonidas had the intelligence. The pass was being flanked. He had hours, at most, before his force was encircled. What he did next is the act that separates history from legend. He dismissed the Allied contingents. He sent them south. This was not cowardice on their part, it was tactical sense. If the Greek allies died here, the defense of the south collapsed entirely. They needed to live to fight at Salamis, at Plataea, at the engagements still to come. The Thespians refused to go. All 700 of them stayed. The 300 Spartans never considered leaving, not because they were following orders. Because they were Spartans. Because the law of Sparta, the Spartan code, held that a soldier does not retreat from his position. And because Leonidas had chosen each of these men specifically for this moment. They knew, they had always known. This was why they came. Dawn on day 3, Leonidas did not wait behind the wall. He advanced forward into the wider part of the pass, beyond the rebuilt Phocian wall, into more open ground. This decision puzzled later commentators. Why leave the strongest defensive position? The answer is strategic and psychological. Defensive lines invite encirclement. By moving forward, Leonidas chose the terms of his final engagement. He would not die cowering behind a wall. He would die advancing. And he intended to take as many Persians with him as possible. Sources suggest that part of the goal was to kill Persian nobles, officers, commanders, members of Xerxes' family, who were believed to be in the front lines. The battle that followed was described by Herodotus in stark, almost clinical terms. The Greeks fought with spears until the spears broke. They fought with swords until the swords broke. They fought with their hands. Many fell, but the fight continued for hours. Leonidas himself fell in this final advance. What happened next tells you everything about what these men were. The Spartans fought their way back to his body. Over his body, they reformed the phalanx. For a period, a wall of Spartan shields stood in the open pass, protecting the corpse of their king. According to Herodotus, 4 separate Persian charges were required to dislodge them and retrieve the body. Eventually, the survivors, whoever remained, retreated to a low hill at the edge of the pass. Here, surrounded on all sides, with the Persian force closing from the front and the Immortals arriving from the rear, they made their absolute final stand. Xerxes, furious at the cost of the battle, ordered his archers to fire. A saturation volley. The sky darkened with arrows. Remember the Spartan warrior Leonidas. He is the man who, when told that Persian arrows would blot out the sun, replied, "Then we shall fight in the shade." Herodotus reports this as his actual response. It was not bravado. It was a soldier stripping fear of its power through the simplest possible logic. Under the arrow storm, on a small hill in a mountain pass that stank of sulfur, the last of the 300 died. Xerxes was so enraged, and, perhaps, so unsettled by the cost of what should have been a simple morning's work, that he ordered Leonidas' head cut from his body and placed on a spike. In Persian military culture, fallen enemies were shown respect. This act of desecration was a deliberate exception. It reveals something. Even in total victory, Leonidas had gotten so deeply under Xerxes' skin that the King of Kings needed to degrade him in death. The 700 Thespians died alongside the Spartans. Their names are not on the famous monument. Their city of Thespiae was subsequently razed to the ground by the advancing Persian army. They chose to die for a city that was going to be destroyed anyway. Hold that thought. Because that is the most devastating fact in this entire story. Myth: Leonidas died delivering an inspiring speech. Truth: Herodotus records no final speech. He died fighting forward in the pass, in hand-to-hand combat. His actions were the speech. We know how they died. But here is the question the movie never asks: did it actually work? Did 3 days at Thermopylae change the outcome of the war? The answer is one of the most contested questions in ancient history. Stay here. The Persian army walked through Thermopylae on day 3 and continued south. They burned Athens. The Athenian population had evacuated. Themistocles had read the strategic situation correctly and moved the civilians to nearby islands before the Persians arrived. But the city burned. So in the most immediate sense, Thermopylae fell. Greece was invaded. The largest city in the Greek world was reduced to ash. The sacrifice failed, didn't it? Not quite. The 3 days at Thermopylae bought the Athenian fleet the time it needed to complete preparations at the island of Salamis, in the Saronic Gulf south of Athens. Themistocles had spent years building a navy, 200 triremes, using revenue from a silver strike at the Laurian mines. He had persuaded the Athenians to fund a fleet instead of distributing the silver to citizens. At Salamis, In September 480 BC, weeks after Thermopylae, the Greek fleet lured the Persian navy into the narrow strait between the island and the mainland. In confined waters, the Greeks' superior ship handling destroyed the Persian fleet. Xerxes watched from a throne on the shore as his navy disintegrated. Without naval superiority, Xerxes could not supply his massive land army through the winter. He withdrew to Asia with a significant portion of his forces. He left a smaller army, perhaps 100,000 men, under the general Mardonius to complete the conquest. The following year, at the Battle of Plataea, a united Greek land force defeated Mardonius. The Persian invasion was over. The chain, Thermopylae, bought days. Those days enabled Salamis. Salamis broke Persian naval power. Broken naval power forced the Persian withdrawal. The withdrawal enabled Plataea. Plataea ended the invasion. Remove Thermopylae from that chain, and every subsequent link shifts. Does Salamis still happen? Perhaps. Does it happen in time, with a fully prepared fleet, with Greek morale intact? That is much less certain. What is certain is this: the stand of the 300, and the 700 Thespians, and the other Greeks who died in that pass, did not just delay an army. It demonstrated something. It demonstrated that Persian numbers were not the overwhelming advantage everyone had assumed. That a disciplined force, with terrain and tactical intelligence, could make numerical superiority irrelevant. That Greece could fight back. That demonstration mattered as much as the 3 days it bought. Morale is not a small thing in warfare. The Battle of Salamis was won by Greek sailors who had just watched the land army fight Persia to a standstill for 3 days. They believed they could win. That belief was not nothing. So let's audit the movie, quickly, because you deserve a clean verdict on every major claim. Myth: only 300 men fought at Thermopylae. Truth: approximately 7,000 Greeks fought over the 3 days. On the final day, roughly 1,400 remained, 300 Spartans plus 700 Thespians and some Thebans. Myth: the Spartans fought nearly naked. Truth: they wore bronze breastplates, greaves, and full helmets. The Aspis shield alone weighed 15 pounds. Spartan kit was among the heaviest infantry equipment in the ancient world. Myth: Xerxes was a supernatural god-king. Truth: he was a human monarch of average to tall height who used divine imagery as deliberate political theater. By Persian accounts, he was an effective and sophisticated ruler. Myth: Leonidas gave a stirring final speech. Truth: no historical source records a speech. His documented words were 2 mollen labe. The rest is script writing. Myth: the Spartans were freedom-loving democratic heroes. Truth: Sparta was a militarized slave state. The agoge was real and brutal. The Helots were systematically oppressed. The Spartans' heroism at Thermopylae is genuine, and the political system that produced them was not democratic freedom. Myth: Ephialtes was a deformed outcast seeking revenge. Truth: there is no historical description of Ephialtes' appearance. He was likely a local farmer or trader who knew the mountain terrain. His motivation may have been financial reward, or opportunism. History doesn't know. The movie gave us mythology. History gave us something harder, stranger, and ultimately more worth understanding. Real heroism doesn't need enhancement. The Thespians who chose death for a city that burned anyway. Leonidas selecting men who had already fathered sons. Deinechus stripping panic of its power with 4 words. A wall of Spartan shields forming over the body of a dead king, in a stinking mountain pass, against an empire. That story doesn't need CGI. It needs telling straight. The stone at Thermopylae still stands. You can visit it today. It bears the inscription written by the poet Simonides, words carved within living memory of the battle, commissioned by the Greeks who returned to bury their dead. Go, stranger, and tell the Lacedaemonians that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. No glory, no boasting, no speech, just 11 words that say, we were given an order. We followed it, we are dead, go. The 300 movie lied to you, but the real story, if you let it, hits harder than any lie. If this changed how you see Thermopylae, subscribe. Because next week, we're going to the battle that Thermopylae made possible, Salamis. The naval engagement that actually saved Western civilization. And that story has been buried even deeper than this one. Subscribe. The history they didn't teach you is waiting.